All right. We have Rena Dulberg here from Think Impact. She's the VP of Community Engagement. And thank you for doing a little interview with us today for my entrepreneurial class at Northeastern. So if you can just tell me a little bit about yourself and about Think Impact and what inspired its creation.
Okay. Well, a very short little background on myself is that I'm Rena. I've been working in the higher ed field for almost 10 years now, or maybe it's even closer to 11, all things combined. Started out at a more traditional institution, occupying various roles around leadership development, civic engagement, service learning, diversity and inclusion, teaching and learning with faculty, curriculum development and design, kind of general higher ed operations. So kind of moved around in that space at one institution for quite a while, and about almost 2 years ago moved to Think Impact, which is a social enterprise that works in the higher ed space as kind of a third-party partner with colleges and universities as our primary clients. So my role there as VP of Community Engagement is really about a couple of things. Working directly with faculty and university administrators and students, so sort of university stakeholders, to design and customize the Think Impact program and curriculum to meet their needs. So we bring cohorts from colleges and universities all over the United States to Africa and Latin America to immerse and then develop new social entrepreneurship projects with community members on the ground there. And so we're working specifically in Africa and Latin America to do that. So I'm working with those faculty to design their programs. And then I'm also really working to kind of develop Think Impact from the inside out as well. So improving and revising and designing new programs all the time. Think Impact is now part of a larger company as well. So we have some sister companies and brands that I'm working across to just develop better products. So
that's great. And within this entrepreneurship class I'm taking, we're learning a little bit about how these ideas come to fruition and basically trying to solve a problem. So what problem would you say Think Impact was trying to solve?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the beauty of social entrepreneurship, and this is really what the founder learned and discovered as he decided to create Think Impact as what it is today, is that it can solve multiple problems at the same time. So what the founders sort of identified was that there were social problems happening in these really rural communities in the places that he was visiting. He started out in South Africa, and I can kind of tell you the founding story if it's helpful.
Sure.
But starting out in South Africa and then moving into some of these other countries, there's some real social challenges faced by these rural community members. Everything from economic challenges that impact people's lives to health issues to educational barriers and all sorts of things like that. And then also possible sort of entrepreneurial business opportunity as well. Folks that were really looking to grow and to scale and, little local micro entrepreneurship ventures in these communities that had something really special to offer, but maybe just didn't have all the resources or didn't know that they had the resources, didn't know how to leverage the resources that they had in order to make that more successful for their communities. So the idea that our founder had was to basically help college students, namely, serve as catalysts to help to get these communities sort of to leverage their own resources in a better way. So that serves multiple purposes, right? You're solving some of those social problems because ideally these types of ventures have positive impact community-wide. They're also developing the economic opportunity for the entrepreneur or entrepreneurs that are living there. And also the students that are traveling there are really having the opportunity to get a lot of benefit, everything from the hard skills of, the entrepreneurship piece all the way through kind of the cross-cultural communication and competencies that we feel are important for 21st century education and higher ed. So, so really it's sort of about like intersecting problem solving across all these different stakeholders and using this tool of social entrepreneurship to allow everyone to participate in the kind of social change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So in your time at Think Impact, what are some of the challenges and successes that you've witnessed?
So the successes I think are really easy to see. Our for both on the student side and on the community member side in country. So on the student side, I've talked to a lot of alumni since I started who have said, I signed up for Think Impact because I thought it would be good for my resume, or a faculty member really encouraged me to do it, and it ended up changing what I want to do. I'm changing my major. My career path looks really different now. So we know that the successes that are happening from a learning standpoint on the part of the students that are participating in the programs is very real and very tangible. Sometimes it's also less tangible, and that's also successful. I think sometimes these really transformative success stories are really easy to grab onto, but sometimes it happens more incrementally, and the students just are now more aware of the process of using design thinking or assets-based thinking, which is something that they apply in small ways every day, even if they're kind of headed down the same path that they were in the big picture as before they participated. That's still, positive outcome.
Sure.
On the community member side, these ventures really, really take off a lot of the time, not always, and we're very intentional and clear to make sure that people know that the success of Think Impact is not and should not be tied to the success of the ventures, because in any form of entrepreneurship, there's going to be failure, and it's learning from that failure and figuring out what to do next, not sort of like smooth sailing all the way up.
Right.
So, when ventures are successful that students and community members have collaborated on, that's awesome, and we sort of get excited and try to do what we can to support. But also, I think the real success is often that community members have learned these tools of design thinking and assets-based thinking, and they don't necessarily need to look to any outsider anymore to say, like, come help us, right? It's more about, I've learned how to look around my own community and figure out, I could be partnering with that person, or, and so that skill set can be reused over and over again, and I think that's one of the huge successes.
Yeah.
Certainly there are other measures of success around, more measurables, revenue, and whatnot, and Think Impact has had its ups and downs with that. We're very vulnerable to region-specific safety and security issues. So when the Ebola crisis broke out in West Africa a few years ago, Think Impact was really hit hard. And, we were working in Ghana at the time, and we're sending tons of troops to Ghana, and that, hit us really hard. And so there was a whole redoing of the strategy. That's when we expanded to Latin America, which we're so glad we did in so many ways now. But, so the economic success of our own venture also drives sort of some of our strategy.
Sure. That challenge turned into an opportunity, it sounds like. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So those are some of them. I think other challenges that we face have to do with, recruiting and getting students to really understand what it is that we offer. We're an alternative. We're like study abroad, but we're not study abroad. We're like Peace Corps, but we're not Peace Corps. We're sort of this enigma thing that lives in the middle of a lot of other things that people know. So I think the challenge of getting through to faculty and students is very real. We're finding that it's, on the success side, that it's really beneficial to really make sure that faculty are the ones that we reach first. And then let them kind of filter that down into the student realm. So, so yeah, it's really exciting. There's lots of pros and cons with the merger for sure. I can talk more about that if you're interested, but there's lots of challenges there too, but it's mostly really exciting.
That's great. Yeah, that discussion about getting to the teachers first, that's actually a good segue to my WIFM question. What's in it for the universities or the teachers, and what's in it for the students in terms of partnering with Think Impact?
Yeah, totally. So I'll start with faculty. I think what's in it for the faculty, honestly, is that they understand our pedagogy. Like, they're on board philosophically with what Think Impact is. It's not a volunteerism trip. It's not traditional study abroad, living in a U.S. run, kind of dormitory style setting and taking classes. It's providing the challenge to students that faculty want to do, and they believe in the sort of asset-based community development model that we have.
Right.
So that part, they already know. What faculty, as many of us know, do not want to do is the logistics. They don't. Right. It's hard for them to form relationships with community members like the ones that we have relationships with. They don't want to be dealing with airfare and lodging and transportation. They don't have the bandwidth for that, or the skill set. In some ways, and so we can really step in and say, we understand you pedagogically, but we also have the staff infrastructure to be able to support all the little details that need to happen to bring students from upstate New York to the middle of, to like 3 hours outside of Accra, Ghana.
Right.
And we have the relationship with the community. That's really key too. So we're not just popping in and popping out, but in between we have in-country staff that really stay in touch with that community and maintain the relationship, check on the project, check on the venture,
right,
get feedback, that we apply to the next program and things like that.
That seems to be one of the biggest points of differentiation for you all too.
Out of it.
Yeah,
so the faculty member can just show up and teach, and enjoy, or some of them are more hands-on with teaching than others. Some of them really just participate. So that's kind of what's in it for the faculty. For students, I talked about some of the learning objectives for students, but I think the other thing that we offer that's really different is no one else is doing rural and no one else is doing immersion the way that we are. You can live in a homestay, when you travel here and there, but are you going to work with them? Are you really, understanding all of the different forces and factors that they're having to deal with on a daily basis? Or do you sort of have a separate job, but you're living in a homestay? So there's lots of other programs that have that model, but we're sort of saying, like, in fact, the first fourth of our curriculum, the whole, whether that's 10 days or 8 weeks, is immersion, and your only job as a student during that time is to live as the family member lives. So that's hard to find, and it's also in a rural setting, which is hard to find.
Right.
Those communities are more disconnected than urban communities, and those relationships that the in-country staff have with those communities that have sometimes been going on for 15 years, like in the case of Kenya or Rwanda, that makes it really unique. So it's the pedagogy combined with where it happens, combined with the curriculum of really a focus on immersion and empathy and listening. Is I think what really helps us stand out in the eyes of students and what they'll take away from us, which they won't get from any other program.
Sure, and it sounds like you're really living up to the name in terms of making impact and long-lasting impact for them to understand how to empower them within their own communities when they get home, and making a real change. Okay, and then what do you see as the future of entrepreneurship in the education space, especially given all of your experiences within higher ed and now with this enterprise? What do you think is the future?
Future of entrepreneurship in higher ed. I think it's really interesting. A lot of folks in the sector of impact right now, as you may know, and entrepreneurship are reading this book, Winners Take All. Have you read of it?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it yet.
Okay, so I think we're sort of at this interesting juncture of entrepreneurship more generally, but also focused on community impact in entrepreneurship. So for us, it's really important because I think a lot of what we see right now with social entrepreneurs is that they've made their money in traditional entrepreneurship ventures, and they sort of become these like philanthropist social entrepreneurs. And where I think it's going is a more blended approach. I also think that equity is an increasing conversation that entrepreneurs are having to sort of face and confront. That even entrepreneurs, even social entrepreneurs who want to do this win-win kind of model, are having to have more conversations about equity and what that really looks like on the ground.
Right.
What it looks like as someone who's running a venture. We've had conversations about our board and how, if you look at it, it doesn't really reflect the communities that we work in, and we're going to try to fix that. So I think just really accountability and entrepreneurship, it's not, I don't know, I just think it's becoming more complex in the best possible way.
Right.
And some of the lines between sectors and things are blurring. Social entrepreneurship, not so different from the nonprofit sector space, and yet they're treated so differently by investors, by funders, and all of these things. And I would hope that the future is for students of higher ed and faculty to really embrace a more blurred, sort of hybridized approach.
Right.
There's a skill set for entrepreneurship, and then how does that apply really across the board, no matter what sector you're in? I feel like it's very segmented right now.
Yeah, that's a trend I've been noticing in our reading, is just like the breaking down of barriers, the blurring of silos. Silos are coming down, which is nice within institutions and with community partners and other companies and for-profits and nonprofits.
And I think this isn't my most favorite topic, and I think for a lot of people it's not the most sexy thing, but I think talking about the funding and the fundraising of entrepreneurship is something we need to talk about more.
Absolutely.
Because that's where a lot of the equity issue comes in. there's some bloggers out there that do some good, I think, work writing about how the funding model, both in the kind of entrepreneurship, for-profit sector as well as the nonprofit sector, really breeds some of the problems that we're seeing. This reporting, demand, and just asking organizations to spend so much time on things that relate to what the funder sort of thinks they are owed, as opposed to sort of empowering and trusting the organization to which they're giving or supporting to just get the work done and focus on that.
Right.
So I'm probably not explaining it as well as I could, but I think just sort of more honest conversations between funders and entrepreneurs in any sector is called for.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Well, that's really all I know. I have one more for you. So what advice do you have for budding entrepreneurs who are mission driven? I mean, obviously Think Impact is highly mission driven in what they're doing. So for those who want to kind of enter that social entrepreneurship space, what advice might you have?
I think try to experience a lot of different types of entrepreneurship. I think it's very different to sit in a business management and entrepreneurship course than it is to do a program abroad, than it is to do something on the micro level in a rural community like what we do, which we're really learning as a result of our merger, because we have now 4 different ways of interacting in different communities, very different sort of approaches to that, and each one of us has our own sort of, in a bubble, we would say this is entrepreneurship. But now that we're looking at all 4, we're sort of saying well, then what is it? Because if we're each saying it's X, but we're all defining that differently, maybe we need a more broad sort of way of defining that. So
sure.
I would encourage students to say, I understand entrepreneurship on all these different levels or in all these different contexts. And I recognize sort of how to adapt maybe what the fundamentals are by realizing that the way it shows up might manifest really differently, and doesn't mean it's not entrepreneurship,
Right.
There's also one more thing, is that there's also sort of this hero complex around being an entrepreneur,
right,
or entrepreneurship in general, and sort of about being the person with the big idea. And I think we need to make space in entrepreneurship for people who are not that person, or who don't want to be that person,
right,
or just not idolizing that person as much either.
Sure.
How do we make space for a collaborative entrepreneur, some sort of form of entrepreneurship that's not about someone with a big idea, but about a cohort of people that are doing something together as a team? And is that still entrepreneurship?
Right.
Make space for some of those kinds of questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to have the person with the big idea, but you can't call it entrepreneurship if you can't execute it, and you need a group of people who are kind of experts in their areas to do that.
The entrepreneur, I think we just need to think about talking about the roles that people play in entrepreneurship a bit differently, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, was there anything that we didn't quite cover that you wanted to sneak in here?
Let me think about that. I think one other thing, and this maybe relates to this last point that we just mentioned, is that again, going back to this idea of what is an entrepreneur, I think it's someone who can wear a lot of different hats and has a lot of different skills. And so one of the skills that Think Impact believes an entrepreneur needs is to be a designer, which maybe isn't something that they always think they need to do, and to be a listener, and to be empathic. And so that's just a big part of who we are, is providing people, not so much saying you are now an entrepreneur, if you've done this program and now you can replicate this over and over again, should you choose to, but really that you have a set of skills that can be applied to problem solving. It's sort of like glasses you can put on to see things in a more assets-based way that may not apply to an entrepreneurial opportunity. It just applies to life. It applies to anything, it applies to a lot of different things.
Right.
I use that skill set all the time, in different ways, and talk about it all the time in different ways. So I think just really realizing that there's a lot of different types of skills and opportunities that go into this is part of what we're about.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable to know, just because we might not all identify as an entrepreneur, but we can have those entrepreneurial skills.
Or as a designer, I'm not a designer. That's for artists. That's for, but we actually are. I mean, if you're coming up with an idea potentially, or partnering on an idea, you are designing something.
Sure.
So what can you borrow from that tool set that would support you?
Right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure everyone will find this really valuable and definitely interesting for people to look into Think Impact. If people want to get more involved, or what might you recommend in terms of connecting with Think Impact?
Our website,
okay.
thinkimpact.com. Feel free to contact me. I'm happy to answer more specific questions.
Okay.
About Think Impact, about the new company that we're forming with our 3 other brands that work in the international education space.
That's great.
Very available. We have internships. We have all kinds of things.
That's great. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.